Hello and welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. This week, our host, Coach Preston Peterson, brings to you a high school strength coach who is doing it big time in the high school setting. We really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this week's show.
Before we get to the show, I'd like to thank our sponsors. The first one is TeamBuildr. Thank you, TeamBuildr, for sponsoring today's episode. TeamBuildr is the leading software for high schools and colleges by providing coaches the ability to write programs online, generate over 13 reports, and even train athletes remotely for side income. Right now, if you sign up with the code BIGTIME, you'll receive a free APRE programming template, which works automatically within TeamBuildr. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. You can automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with TeamBuildr. It is an awesome software. The guys at TeamBuildr have it going on. Hewitt is an awesome resource for everybody that is a high school strength and conditioning coach. There's not enough great things I can say about TeamBuildr and everything that they're doing for coaches around the nation. Our second sponsor for today's show is PowerLift. PowerLift is the leading manufacturer and distributor of heavy-duty strength training equipment for collegiate and high school athletic performance centers around the world. PowerLift brings over 20 years of experience to the strength and conditioning world, and all the products are manufactured in the state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Jefferson, Iowa. They are proud to support all coaches making it big time where they're at, and I cannot say enough great things about these two sponsors. PowerLift in general, from my college days to where I'm at now, PowerLift has been our rack. I'm telling you guys, there is not a more durable rack out there. If you go to Northwest Missouri State, you check out the racks there. They've had them probably for close to 15, 20 years now, and they still look like they're brand new. The racks that we have within our weight room, nice, pristine. It does not show wear and tear at all. And the thing about it is when you buy PowerLift, you are getting heavy duty. This stuff is rugged and it will last. And when you're looking for training equipment that's going to be used by multiple teams, multiple student athletes every single day, it's important to have the best. So thank you to our sponsors, TeamBuildr and PowerLift. Now let's get to our show. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. Today we have on the show Coach Gary Schofield. Coach Schofield, I was telling him prior to the show that he's one of the guys in the industry that truly had impacted me. He's one of the reasons why I got in strength and conditioning. I told him it wasn't just high school strength and conditioning. It was anything. I saw his passion, the love that he had for what he was doing and the love that he had for his athletes. And it just sparked a fire in me. And I tell you this, I'm so excited to interview Gary, get to know where he came from, where he's at now, and truly how he's making the big time where he's at, no matter what he's doing. So I'm going to let him take over kind of his background. I know it's very extensive and get the show rolling. Coach Schofield, thanks so much for coming on the show. Can you start out with your background, where you've been, where you're at now, and kind of that trip along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a loaded question with me, mainly because I'm old. But my journey has been unique, to say the least. But I think sometimes your journey is what prepares you to be who you are and kind of helps create that foundation. And I know for me, if you told me I would have been a high school strength coach or I'd be the director of youth and high school development for PLAE, I probably would have taken a different path, thinking that would have helped prepare me. And I think sometimes some young coaches out there and maybe even old coaches have been fooled thinking our current job maybe sets us up for the next job. And I think maybe that's wrong. I think it might be more of the skill sets that you accumulate over a lifetime allow you to have opportunities, and what those opportunities are for the next job could be various. So I think I've been blessed to maybe have a non-traditional route. I started in the 90s with a degree in sports medicine from a small school in Ohio called Marietta College, which at the time I didn't understand the value that I was getting from there, but it was full and robust. And I started as an athletic trainer. So I kind of went down that route, came to Atlanta in 1993. Haven't left. Atlanta's been very good to me, so I haven't left since then, but came here. One of my first jobs was assistant to the athletic trainer and strength coach with the Atlanta Hawks. So job may be a little bit the unique path in that the pros were probably my first entry into a position. with that, I've worked in several different physical therapy centers, ran an outpatient therapy center for a brand and for a hospital. I also started getting into athletic strength and conditioning from athletic training. So my background in athletic training kind of creates a different mindset, a different view, a different observation point, not the traditional GA position, and kind of working through that. So I had some different backgrounds, but I remember going to a really small, maybe 35 coaches up at the University of Georgia. Ron Corson, the athletic trainer there, who is still there, hosted a conference with Vern Gambetta at the time now. And when I tell this to young coaches, they think I'm in wagon wheel eras, but there were no cell phones. There was no internet. So these events were really vital to create networking and educational opportunities, because books, even to today, books, when you read a book, it's 3 to 5 years old. Now self-publishing is changing that game, and ebooks are changing that game. But at that time, you're talking about a 5 to 10-year-old book, and there just weren't that many. There were no bookstores and there were no online portals to get them. So went to this small clinic in the University of Georgia and was absolutely blown away. I didn't know who this guy was, this Vern Gambetta guy. All he had after his name was MA. I didn't understand, like, is this guy a coach? Is he an athletic trainer? Is he a physical therapist? He was presenting things in ways that hadn't been presented to me before. And it really got the fires going in regards to athletic development. I'll use that term with him, as opposed to strength and conditioning, because it really opened my eyes to things that were a little bit more grandiose than just bigger, faster, stronger. And it really set me down a path to explore that opportunity and open my eyes to opportunities above. So starting with that, then I kind of transitioned into a collegiate role for about a year and a half, and then transitioned into and was blessed into working with a private school for the last 20 plus years. In between then, and now, I also had a little bit of entrepreneur streak and opened up a private facility. Goods and bads with both of those. And then recently, about a year and a half ago, in 2018, in May of 2018, PLAE, had developed a relationship with them. Was blown away by the company, their culture, their mindset. Still to this day, blown away by how much they care for the profession as opposed to getting from the profession. So I was intrigued by that, and now I am kind of functioning as the director of youth and high school development for them. And that is a global position. Just got back from Australia. Be heading to the UK pretty soon, and then I'll across the United States. In fact, this week I think I'm heading to Omaha and Minnesota. So blessed to be able to connect, learn, and share with coaches across the country. But I do think the unique background of sports medicine and strength and conditioning, exercise science, biomechanics may have prepped me to have maybe a different view than just if I had a powerlifting background, Olympic lifting background, or a very specific mindset. I think it allowed me to maybe view things in a more open idea.
Coach, like you said, it's not the traditional background, but definitely sets you up to be very successful. And obviously we can define that in a lot of different ways, the word success. But one of the things that I saw from the very beginning was your passion for helping people and your passion for helping your student athletes and even people that you didn't know, other coaches primarily. And I want you to start out maybe with what your mission is, maybe when you were a coach at Greater Atlanta Christian, or now as a PLAE director of, like going global. What is your mission?
I think it's a big thing, having a mission and a vision and a clear understanding of what you want to do and how you want to go about doing it. I think in order to do that, a lot of times people create mission and vision statements and they become these great, really cool wordings on a page, and maybe don't have really the essence behind it that maybe they, and one of the things that people may have heard me talk about is this word ikigai. Ikigai is a word in Okinawa used for the reason they get out of bed every morning. And so for coaches all the time, before we even get into, when I go around and I may be doing a staff development session or trying to learn from them, I'm always trying to figure out what is their ikigai. And boy, you got to tell me it's got to be bigger than getting out of bed to pay bills. You got to tell me it's because my job says I have to be somewhere. There's got to be something that motivates you bigger. And when you're able to attach what you do for a living to what motivates you or what your true ikigai is, that's when people say, well, I don't have a job, I have a passion. And I did a podcast several years ago about that, and I can kind of still hang on that because I really do believe that I'm blessed to be paid for what I get to love to do. So with that, this ikigai concept really kind of emanates. There's a book out there, and I would highly recommend that. I know we talk about books later in this podcast, but the book Ikigai, Morales is one of them authors. And they really break it down into 4 concepts. Tiny book, real great book to read, but it's coming off of this TED Talk and book about blue zones. Have you heard about blue zones, Coach, before?
No, I have not, other than when you presented a little bit about this,
okay.
Maybe at the Mid-America, I think.
Last year exactly.
Online.
That's correct. Yes, sir. So talk a little bit more and more about it. But blue zones are places across the world that people live the longest. And I don't know about you, but if life is good, then living is not bad. So I would like to maximize those opportunities, because those are maximal opportunities to impact other people, not to live for myself, but to live for others. So I want to maximize that. So I'm intrigued by that. Why do people live so long in other places? Is it culture? Is it climate? Is it genetics? What is it? Is it the foods they eat? What is it that drives it? And one of the things they found is that, all those things are great, but really what it was people had this firm sense of what they got out of bed in the morning. In fact, in Okinawa, which is one of those blue zones, they don't even have the word retirement. They have this idea of they get out of bed with a purpose in mind. Those purposes are driven by 4 things. What is it that you love to do? What really do you love to do? What makes you feel most alive? And then what is it that you're good at? And that comes with 2 things. One, things that you were born with, like they come easy. For some of my athletes, when I'm training and they increase their vertical and they jump and they dunk, and I go, man, that's awesome. Look how high you can jump. Most of those athletes, that's not even that much of a compliment. They know they were born with that. And we've worked with those athletes before, and we know we did nothing with them. They were still going to dunk that ball. They had some genetic predisposition with them. So there are things that we're all good at beyond just the physical measures. And what are those things that come easy? For me, just observation, being able to look at things. I don't know where I got that. I don't necessarily had that taught to me. But then there were also these skills and talents that you worked your behind off. You busted your A on to develop and worked hard at. And, for me in high school, believe it or not, I may have spoken 5 words. Anyone that went to high school with me would tell you I'm not lying. I was not very outgoing, and yet I make a career now of speaking across the world. So I've worked hard to try to be a better communicator, and I still work hard to try to be a better communicator, because I think that's where the impact is. But what are these skill sets that you're good at? Then the third thing is, what does the world need? Now, this is the toughest one, because we could have an endless list of what this world needs, because it's flawed. It's flawed because people live in it. And we could make this ridiculous list of all the problems that are in the world, but the catch to this is, what causes do you believe in that you've done something with, that you've engaged with? So a good coach, a friend of mine, homelessness was one of the things he had. And I'm like, okay, so how many times have you fed the homeless? How many times have you missioned out to them? How many times have you done anything? And he was like, well, never. It just bothers me. I'm like, well, it hasn't bothered you enough to do anything about it. So maybe that's not what the world needs then. What is it? And we find in this concept that's a struggle point. And then the 4th thing is, what can you get paid to do? Now, obviously you have certifications and you develop components that allow me to be employed. I could be an athletic trainer. I could be a strength and conditioning coach. I could be a teacher. I could be a PE teacher, consultant. There are a lot of different things that I couldn't be a fireman. I don't carry that with me. So what are those answers to those 4 things and how they interact really do create your ikigai, or let you know when you're feeling something's missing in life. Where is it? So usually when I have coaches fill this out, it's really a full list of what people love to do. It's a very small list of what the world needs, because most of our lives revolve around ourselves instead of others. And that has nothing to do with being a good or bad person. It's just the way that our culture is currently. And it's a great eye opener, but it also does kind of get you off your behind. So going through that, Coach, to make a long story short, going through that and really identifying what it is that I love to do helps me create a mission statement personally that drives me every day to get out of bed. So my mission statement really clearly is to engage, educate, and empower coaches and athletes to develop some sort of skill that's going to translate to an improved sport performance or pursuit of lifetime of wellness. And I can say that massively, and I can break it down to engage, educate, and empower. I want to be able to engage. Now, listen, if I sit here and I'm monotone and I'm very boring and I say the things you've already heard, you're going to shut this podcast off. It's useless. I've already heard this. But if I come with a lot of energy and a lot of big words and like, whoo, he's catching my attention, but I don't educate it, I don't follow back with actual truths and stuff that's actually applicable, then what have I done? I've done nothing more than the sham wow guy on a commercial. When you're passing that on TV, you're going to stop because he's going to catch your eye because he's doing really weird things. But in the end, you realize he's selling you a chamois towel. And you're like, yeah, maybe I'd move on. And you click the channel. So you got to be able to engage, but you better follow that with education. But here's the deal. If I just leave you with great thoughts, but I don't challenge you or empower you to go do things and apply it, then I really haven't done anything. So my real mission is to engage, educate, empower. It's a real push. And you'll see that kind of that concept tied into the NHSSCA, which I know we'll talk about later. So with that in mind, now that's my personal mission, right? With that in mind, this new role with PLAE, which I'm beyond pumped about, has kind of translated that to innovate and create the premier environment that fuels youth and high school athletes to become the next best version of themselves. Not the best version of themselves, the next best version of themselves, because we should always be pursuing to get better. You know, we should be logging into podcasts and reading books and challenging ourselves to be better. So tomorrow I'm going to be better. I don't hope to be better because hope's not a strategy. I'm going to be better than I am today. And in doing so, what do I need to do today in order to be better tomorrow? So tomorrow I want to be the next best version of myself. So to now in this position that I'm at with PLAE, I'm constantly looking to innovate and create this environment. Now, environment isn't just physical. There is a physical, but there's a spiritual, mental, social component of an environment that allows people to really become the next best version of themselves. So that's what drives me every single day. I want to refuse second best. I'm not intrigued by second best. I want to pursue the best. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Coach, I love the explanation with that. And just to give 4 points that coaches can really go to those questions and ask themselves, what does it look like to love something, but also what are you good at? What does the world need? And then what can I get paid to do? I think, like every intern or student teacher or somebody starting out in the career needs to be able to answer those questions, right? Because if we're not,
I agree.
Right. And there's so much.
And I have a list that if people are interested, I can send it to you and they can get it from you. But really, kind of a brainstorming list to really kind of establish how to do it. A lot of times when I'm going in there with coaches, what I'll tell you is we're gonna find a place and you're gonna put a pen to paper, and once your pen stops to think about. So I say, Coach, I want you to write down right now what you love to do. Once you stop your pen to think about what you love to do, you're done. Because what you're going to start doing at that point, and there's some science behind it, I won't get nerdy on you, but if you stop to think about what you're writing, what you're stopping to think about isn't to think about answering the question. What you're stopping to think about is, how do I want Coach Peterson to hear what I love to do? What do I want other people to hear what I love to do rather than what I really love to do? And when you really get into the brainstorming session and you really do it right, you're going to come up with weird, like in the middle of mine, there's a word beach ball. I have no idea what that's even there for. To this day, I'm like, I do like the beach. What's a beach ball? I don't know if I've ever even messed with a beach ball. I don't know what that's there for, but it's okay to let it be there. But then what you'll do is, in the reality of it, when you do it authentically, you'll start seeing things that make sense to you. And you're like, man, I really love things to a family. I really love things to help others in this specific area. You really tie, and you'll start seeing what you really do love to do. And, that's where you can start, because the combination of what you love to do and what you're good at, that's your passion. Because people are always going to tell you to chase your passion. You've heard that, right, before?
Yes.
I think that's crap. So here's the deal. I want to do everything that I do in life with passion. I have a desire to chase a passion because I love baseball. One of my passions is baseball. So what am I supposed to do at the age closing in on 50? What am I supposed to do? Go find an over to have someone pay me to limp around the bases? No, that's ridiculous. But everything I'm going to do, I don't care whether it is filling out a report or it is actually working to develop the athleticism of an athlete, I'm going to do both of those things with equal passion, or I'm not going to do them. Like, I'm going to do everything with passion. So that's a balance between what you love to do and what you're good at. And when you're doing something that you're not good at, you're not going to do it with passion. But then the balance between what you love to do and what the world needs, that's your mission. That's what's going to help decide what your mission is. What the world needs again, that you're willing to engage on, and what you can get paid for, that's your vocation. And then again, what you're good at and what you can get paid to do, that's your profession. And again, that sounds, he's brilliant for coming up with these. I'm getting them from the Iki guy. Totally give credit for that. So when you fall short of that, you start realizing, man, maybe I'm doing things that I'm not good at, and I'm unsure. Maybe I'm not doing what I want to do at that point. So those are some things that are a challenge point. But yes, you're exactly right. I think, hell, I'll be honest with you, I do it every year. In fact, I do it every quarter. If you really want the truth, I do it every quarter, because what I want to do is make sure because I'm going to evolve, and I want to constantly do it. Because when I talk to coaches, and I know you're going to probably feel this too, I have a lot of coaches that say, man, I have a lot of joy in what I do, and I feel full at what I do, but I have no wealth. And I go, yeah, that's because what you're doing is tying what you love to do, what you're good at, and what the world needs, but it's missing what you can get paid to do. Like, maybe you need to go get a certification. Maybe you need to go find something that's a little bit different. Then a lot of people say, yeah, I'm satisfied, but I feel kind of useless. I don't feel like I'm doing what I should be doing. Well, that's because you're doing what you love to do, what you're good at, and what you get paid to do, but you're not hitting that world needs segment. You also have a lot of coaches that feel comfortable. They feel really good at where they're at. Like, hey, I'm good at where I'm at, but I feel empty in the end of the day. When I go home, I don't feel like I did anything. Well, that's because you did what you're good at. You did what the world needs. You did what you're paid to do. And all that sounds good, but not what you really love to do. So you're missing that self-fulfillment. Then you got other coaches finally that have this like passion and excitement for what they do every day, but they're uncertain. They're uneasy about it. Well, you know why? That's because they're doing what they love to do, what the world needs, and what they can be paid to do, but they're probably not very good at it. Maybe you need to develop a skill set so that your uneasiness will start to settle down a little bit. So those are things that I think before you ever establish a mission or a vision, before you ever establish a philosophy of training, maybe you probably ought to figure that out. Because I think that in doing so will really help you make those decisions down the line for sets, reps, and the way in which I'm going to coach artfully and physically a lot better.
Coach, there's a few things to unpack from this, and I'm going to try to do my best with it. But some things that stick out to me. One of the things is the Start With Why, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I haven't read the book, but just judging off the TED Talk and hearing this information right now, I think it's great, the Start With Why concept. And like I said, I haven't read the book, so nobody jump on me with this. But I think it's incomplete. When you explain those 4 questions to me, I believe that's a little bit further where we need to go. So Start With Why is awesome, and I think we need to be there, and our mindset needs to be there. But these questions, I think, really hone in just a little bit more. So that's one thing that sticks out to me. The second thing that sticks out to me is just to have that vision for your life. And you said it's kind of maybe a buzzword or something, but if we don't know where we are going, we're going to end up somewhere else, right? Like, so this idea of being able to make this map for our life or make what we want to happen, I believe that vision can drive us forward. And I love the way that you're putting this together, because it just makes too much sense for me. And then the last thing that I just want you to start to unpack, and it'll move us into this next question, is you said you like to create and innovate environments, right? That's one of the biggest things that you're doing for the last year and a half is that, but you said it's not just a physical space, it's everything that plays into that. And there we go, wordplay with the play there. But what I want to hear now is, what does it look like to create a culture? How do you go about doing that? And how can you get young coaches to understand what it looks like to build cultures?
Yeah, that's probably, if there's a key thing out there right now, or something that people are pushing, it's championship culture, right? And there are a lot of smarter people than myself, but I really build it down to eight concepts. The 8 concepts that I believe they build on themselves, and I believe every time there's a failing in a culture, or there's a failing in myself, or there's a failing in an individual, it's because one of these 8 things somewhere down the line isn't being focused on. So, breaking those down real quick, and this could be a 4-day talk if we let it be. But the first thing is belief.
Let's keep going, Coach.
Yeah.
Do it.
So belief, right? So here's the deal. Belief is your compass, all right? It's going to set you down the path that you want to go. And for every degree, I mean, this is factual. For every degree that you are off course, 1 degree, if your airplane takes off from an airplane, it is only 1 degree. By the way, 1 degree is tiny. It's almost infinitesimal. I mean, it's tiny. But for every degree you fly off course, you'll miss your target by 92 feet per mile for every mile that you fly. It's crazy. It's lunacy to think about how important your compass sets. So what I believe in, what is it I truly believe in? What is it that I matter? I always bring it up with the best example I can give is Michael Vick, and a lot of the young athletes may not know, but most do. And I say it's not because he didn't go to jail because he threw incomplete passes. He went to jail because he fought dogs. But what most people don't understand, like I've never met someone that thought that was a morally excellent pursuit. So I said, well, then why did he do it? But what most people don't understand is the culture he grew up in, that was not only okay, it was actually a rite of passage. That you got to really dive down and find out what he believe in. He believed in a culture rather than a set of principles that stand the test of time. So when you have coaches that decide on a philosophy of training rather than principles that don't change, then you're going to have a problem. So you need to set your belief. What is it that you truly believe in? Then, okay, once I get that set, and it's a stand the test of time belief. Now I want to pursue excellence. I don't want to pursue average. I want to pursue excellence. So every decision I make during the day, do you evaluate at the end of the day? Like getting on this podcast, I will determine, was that something that was an excellent decision of mine or not? The food that I ate, was that an excellent decision of mine or not? When I got out of bed this morning, the time at which I got out of bed or not, was that excellent? Who I chose as friends, what I chose to look at on my phone. A lot of our young athletes are looking at very bad things on their phone. Are those excellent choices or not? And if I'm not evaluating that every day before I go to bed, how do I stand a chance of knowing what I'm pursuing? So I get my belief set. I'm pursuing excellence based on that. Then the third step is wisdom. Because here's the deal. I'm going to mess up constantly. Coach, you're going to mess up constantly. And if we expect athletes that we work with to not mess up, then we're messed up to begin with. The reality is we're flawed individuals, but the losing, the failure is actually a great learning experience. That's where this growth mindset comes from. My failings will allow me to develop wisdom. They'll allow me to develop the understanding of right and wrong, to know, because if I don't mess, then I don't ever learn the ability to learn right from wrong. So I want to learn that growth mindset. I want to say, you know what? If I do the same thing I do every single day and I don't risk anything, I stay in this comfort zone. I don't ever even get close to the learning zone, because only when I get out of my comfort zone do I start getting into the point where I could make a mistake. That's okay. I want to explore those areas. I don't want to explore mistakes, but I want to explore the area that pushes me to learn new concepts. But that's where wisdom comes from. The difference between just plain knowledge and wisdom is experience. I have to experience it. So once I learn and once I gather wisdom, then and only then can I gather discipline. Because discipline is, hey, listen, I know what right is, I know what wrong is, and I choose right. Even though no one's going to know, I still choose right because I have that understanding, that knowledge behind it, that wisdom. So that's how I can develop discipline. When I hear people say, well, those kids don't have discipline, I wonder if they have the belief set right. I wonder if they pursue excellence, and I wonder if they have the ability to develop wisdom because mom and dad always protected them from failing. A teacher that wants to give him an F, no, you can't give my kid an F. I want you to give my kid an F if he deserves the F. Let's go through this process. Let's make him learn, because then you get discipline. Now, discipline, that sounds great, but that's not the end. That's just the beginning. Because what I need to now develop is perseverance. Perseverance is simply the ability to do the right thing when I get no reward. That's grit, that Angela Duckworth book, if you want to read that. Now you have an understanding of, listen, I'm going to do the right thing even when I get no reward. I'm going to train hard even though I'm the third string cornerback. I'm not looking for another place to go or another person to blame it on. I'm going to do the right thing even regardless of reward. And I'm going to develop perseverance. And when you really truly develop perseverance, then you're going to also develop a work ethic, which in this culture, work ethic, you got to understand the culture our athletes are growing up in. Think about this for a minute. Our culture has declared war on work. Hollywood. Tell me right now, if I tell you the portrayal of a plumber, what's the first thing that comes to your head on a Hollywood? How do they portray a plumber with his ass crack hanging out? How do they portray a person on the side of the road digging holes for a living? Well, he's an unintelligent individual. Not that he's working his A off. No, we don't want to do that. Madison Avenue, what do? They market clickers and apps so that we can actually work less and punch out earlier. God forbid we actually work more. Washington, D.C., do you think the policies and politics are driven at the blue collar or the guys that work a little bit different? No, they're taking us away from work. And then Silicon Valley, STEM versus vocational schools. Which one is being pushed right now? tell you right now, it's STEM. God forbid someone learned to be an electrician. By the way, he's probably going to make twice the amount of money that these guys are coming out of degrees. So work ethic is challenged by our culture, but we're only going to get that by developing perseverance. So you got to really settle down, and you got to really develop perseverance. But again, not where it ends. So I'm going to do the right thing regardless of reward. And then when I start doing the right thing regardless of reward, I realize that life isn't about me. It's not the reward I get. It's about what I can give. Am I a giver or am I a taker? Am I looking to see what I can give to the world around me or what I can get from the world around me? And when you start realizing that, you start developing a positive attitude. Instead of blaming what you're not getting on other people, you start realizing that the important thing is, what can I give to other people? I don't really care what I get back. What can I give to other people? And then you develop into a servant leader. That's the number 7 point. Now it's all about, people want to talk about being service or provide the service. Literally, I want to be a servant leader. I want to give more than I get from this world. Now, when you can do those 7 things, I'm telling you right now, guess what you can do every single freaking day when you wake up? You can do every single thing that you want to do with passion, not chasing it, but you can do it with passion. So you want to develop a culture, where kids sprint to your weight room because they don't want to miss a single moment. Well, you better work on those 8 things. And when something's not right, when you have an undisciplined kid or you're a kid that isn't consistent, he hasn't developed perseverance, I'm telling you right now, it's something above that is a screw. And so that's where we need to go. Those 8 things are standing the test of time, and I don't care what kind of leadership guru that you want to listen to, those 8 things are going to stand the test of time.
Coach, I just want to know, I love X's and O's of training. There's no doubt that's really fun to me, but even more so than that is this. And you can call it character development, you can call it leadership development, whatever you want to call it. This stuff is, I think, what's mind-blowing. I think the greatest leader in the world, the one that stands the test of time, he talks about this type of stuff, right? And I'm telling you, I believe this is what holds programs together or makes programs be elite or whatever it is. How did you end up developing these 8? Where did this come from? And what was the thought process of doing this?
Yeah. So first of all, I do this talk a lot about legacy and leaving a legacy, and really below it, like I said, it could be a 4-day thing. And I start, the very first slide is this. If I could go back in time, would I change things? And a lot of people, a lot of coaches, especially a lot of older coaches, go, no, it's what made me who I am today. And I say, baloney. I would jump in that time machine tomorrow, in a millisecond, go back and change the bountiful amount of things that I have messed up in my entire life, professionally and personally. And I wish to my core that I had a better understanding of these 8 concepts. For most of my career, I didn't. It was only later in my career that I realized the importance of, whether you want to call it the art of coaching or you want to call it conscious coaching, like Brett Bartholomew, I think is outstanding. Or whether you want to call whatever leadership, or Jaron has a leader kit. Any of those guys are fantastic. I wish. So really, where it first hit me was about 8, I would say more than that. It's probably 10 years ago now. You know what? I'm lying, Coach. It's about 12 years. I can't. I'm forgetting how old I am. I'm forgetting how old I am. So it was about 12 years ago. Sat in a session with Jeremy Boone, and he got up on stage and he was talking about, hey, listen, experts rule, coaches rock. And what he meant by that is experts are going to tell you, you're going to do it my way because I know it's the right way and it's going to get you bigger. It's going to get you faster. It's going to get you stronger. It's going to get you better. Do what I'm telling you. Don't worry about it. Do what I'm saying. And I bet, amen. And then he went, but coaches rock. People love to go with coaches. Coaches are going to get them to the same place, but they rock. No one wants to be under a rule. No one wants to be under a thumb. And I thought, oh. I literally thought he was talking to me. And him and I had known each other, but not deeply. We got to know deeply because I waited and I took him to lunch and I was like, man, how do you know where I'm at? Like, that was spoken directly to me. So it started me down this path of how do I pursue this, again, whether you want to call it art of coaching, conscious coaching, whatever you want to label it. How do I coach better? Like, listen, I'm never going to stop learning sets, reps, volume, intensity, rest intervals, progressions, regressions. I'm never going to stop learning that, but man, none of that matters if I don't learn how to engage and educate and empower my athletes. And how am I going to do this? And then I wish I could tell you those 8 things came because I'm a really smart guy. It's not. What it is, it's a biblical concept. So 2 Peter 1, 5-7. Those 8 things are in the Bible. And God's talking about, hey, listen, if you want to be the man or woman of God that you were designed and built to be, and this is where it comes to belief, brother. Like, do you really in your soul believe that you were born to be great? Or do you believe that what the world's telling you is that you're not big enough, you're not strong enough, you're not fast enough, you're not smart enough? Because that's what the world's going to constantly tell you. Believe me, I've heard that throughout my career, that I wasn't big enough to be a strength coach, fast enough to be a strength coach, not smart enough to be a strength coach. I don't have the background they have. Or do you honestly believe that you were created for something unreal? Do you believe that you were created to be great? I really do believe each one of us, every one of us, was chosen to be great, created to be great, but we have the choice every day of whether or not we want to be that. And so I looked at this verse a little bit in depth, and I was like, you know what? And I took the words that are written there and maybe turned them into words that we understand, both from an athletic and a cultural component today. And when you look at that verse, you're going to see, oh, that's where he got it. And that's where it is. And then I've just tied it into books that are out there, whether it be Jocko Willmick's Discipline Equals Freedom. Because when we're going to talk about discipline, what's the first person? If you talk with an athlete and you say discipline, what's their first thought process? Punishment.
They think punishment. Yeah,
that's right. It's the slap of the wrist. It's the extra running I have to do for doing wrong. But that's the opposite. He'll tell you, listen, discipline equals freedom. Right. Discipline is I get up and do the stuff I'm supposed to do when I'm supposed to do it, so I have the freedom to live the life the way I want to live it. Instead, this world tells you, no, go live your life the way it is, and if you step over the line, you get disciplined. No, that's the backward way of doing it. You're never going to have freedom. You're going to be tied to things. You're going to have to do things last minute because you weren't disciplined enough in the beginning. You're never going to be what you could have been because you weren't disciplined enough in the beginning. And so when I start looking at this, so I wish I could tell you it was a Schofield thought. It'd be nice. It'd make me feel really good, but it's not. I believe it's something. The reason why it emanates and it's powerful, and I believe why people listen to me talk about it, is because I think it's far bigger than who I am. But that's the truth behind it. And again, it starts with the belief issue. So that's where it comes from.
I love it, Coach. That's it. I mean, from top to bottom, 1 through 8, it just makes sense to me, and there's obviously a reason why. So I totally appreciate you rolling with that, because this is I've had a student teacher that was just with me for the last 6 weeks, and he's moving on to his next placement, and I feel horrible now that I was not equipped well enough to. We went through a lot of good things, I believe, but this would have been the piece that I believe would have impacted him more. So I'm going to call him up and see what we can do.
So our I was blessed to have a lot of and we call them mentees. I didn't do interns, because to me the word intern means you're following behind me and doing simple stuff. Mentoring somebody means I'm walking alongside you, and I like that term better. So it's not. I believe words win, like Joe Ken says. I believe words win, and I believe it's not just semantics. I believe there's power in words. So we have a mentorship program. So our mentees that went through our program, the first 8 weeks we went through the Ikigai and this core behaviors. A lot of people say core beliefs, but I believe they're core behaviors. You have to show me these in behavioral fashion. You can't just say I believe in them. So you show me what you believe in. Like, you're going to tell me what you believe? Fine. Now you need to see that every day. You're going to pursue excellence? Then chart it and show me every day. And show me where you messed up, that you learned from it, and how you're making different decisions, because that shows me wisdom. Show me that every day. Those are behaviors. So we did that for 8 weeks. It would really frustrate him at the front end. I'll be very completely honest with you. I don't think I ever had an intern that ever went through the program. And I think we had over 60, and I said intern there, 60 mentees that went through our program. And all of them hated it at the time, but none of them at the end thought it was a waste of time. They all thought that was maybe the most powerful. It wasn't like we didn't get into, philosophies and training components and regressions and progressions and some of the weird stuff that I'm known for with movement and agility and so forth. We got into those things, but we didn't even begin to get into those until they had a better concept, not of their own. Listen, this takes a while to develop, but at least the concepts behind these things. And so I'm with you in that. I think that this probably needs to be pushed more, not less.
Yeah. Which foundation do you want, right? Which one would you rather have? Something where it sets rep scheme, or something that's going to be impactful, life-changing, and something that your mentees are going to be able to take and use and impact the world. I think that's awesome. maybe that's a buzzword right now too, right? Culture is a buzzword,
Yeah.
leadership is a buzzword, and impacting is a buzzword. And what does it look like to impact? And I think this is something where you could point to and actually put some flesh to bone there and say, yes, this is a way that we impact. And so, Coach, I'm truly appreciative of you sharing all of this. It's changing the way I'm looking at things even right now as I'm sitting. My sheet is all the way full of notes, and I don't know what to do yet. I'm trying to look for paper here. So
that's awesome,
Coach. You've talked about the foundation of what we need to be as coaches, as athletes too. I mean, like this applies to them more so, or just as much as the mentees that we'll have, and obviously ourselves. But what does it look like where the rubber meets the road? What would this look like when I'm sitting in Mount Vernon, Iowa, and I've got 30 kids that show up in my room? How do you put this to action?
Yeah, so obviously I'm going to have like you said, a character development plan that goes over these on a routine basis. I have 64 different lessons. I have 8 in each one of those 8 components that they're going to hear about every week. So, if it's belief, they're not going to hear the same lesson constantly. They're going to hear belief. They're going to hear faith. They're going to hear loyalty, trust, hope. Although it's not a strategy, it is a reality. So those are the components that they're going to hear, both from I'll say a spiritual side, because I don't do religion and politics. We stay away from those two things, but I think there's a spiritual, holistic component, but also an athletic component where those minds in. So, believe. Are you going to believe what your personal trainer is saying, or are you going to believe what your strength coach is saying? Are you going to believe what your dad's telling you, or are you going to believe what your defensive back coach is telling you? You're going to believe. There's so many things in life, and how do you balance that, and how do you go about that? So we're going to talk about that on a weekly basis. But where it comes, where the rubber meets the road, all of those things come together to create some core actions for me. They're my core values that connect me to those purposes and goals that we just talked about. And for me, in my training program, it's 5. And anyone that's ever heard me talk, they hear those 3 things. I've actually changed the name of the first one, but the first one is prepare and protect. I used to call it do no harm all the time, but I think harm has a negative connotation. So I'm going to prepare and protect you. I'm going to prepare and protect my athletes. My second one is move well, then move strong, then move fast and thrive. So my belief is I'm going to prepare and protect you. I'm going to do things that reduce the likelihood of injury both in play and also prepare you for that play. They're going to reduce the likelihood of injury in training and hopefully prepare you in training. And then I want you to move like stinkingly well. I want you to get in and out of positions as efficiently as possible. If it takes you, coach, 5 steps to do something that it takes me 3, I win. I don't care how fast you are. I really don't. If it takes you 5 steps and it takes me 3, I win over and over again. Julian Edelman with the Patriots is an example. There's no way he's faster than some of those defensive backs. But what takes him 2 steps takes them 4. He wins. That's just a fact. So I want my athletes to move extremely well. Then I'm going to worry about them moving strong. Now, if I dump strength on top of really poor movement, we all know what's going to happen. I'm going to break them down. Well, that broke rule number 1. I didn't prepare and protect them. So in order to do that, in order to get them really strong, they have to move really well. That's got to be an emphasis on my program. So move strong is also an emphasis. It doesn't mean just because I'm focused on movement that I don't get really, really strong. I'm just getting really, really strong where it matters. But at some point, strong is strong. And more strong is just more strong. So I need to start getting them to move fast. I need them to be extremely explosive. We all know that, but we get lost in chasing numbers. I don't believe in chasing numbers. Unless I had a powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting team, I'm not chasing numbers. I'm not doing that. I'm going to chase performance. My 2 things that matter are the only 2 things that matter. I want you as an athlete to play better and play more, period. At the end of the day, when you come see me, if you don't play better and you play more, but your squat went up and your 40 went down, I haven't done a good job. The only thing that makes me do a good job is if you play more, i.e. you're not hurt, and you play better. You just flat better than you were. I don't care if your bench didn't go up. Are you playing better? Then we did our job. And then finally it's thrive. Did you enjoy every single second that we were together? Did you do it? Because listen, when you're trying to develop discipline and perseverance and all that kind of stuff, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. We all know that. But have I created an environment that recognizes all of that and provides an environment that allows you to be the great that you were born to be? Man, in the end, that's pretty dang good. So those 5 things, prepare and protect, move well, move strong, move fast, and thrive, are the epitome of all the stuff that we've talked about up till now.
I love all that stuff, Coach. And I've heard you say that a few times, but maybe you lost me once you had the Patriots reference. I don't know.
You can't take the Boston out of me. That's the way it
is. We just went through, like I was telling you, I have a student teacher that came in, and that's one of the things that we talk about is kind of your model. And I still said do no harm, but I relate well to what you're saying with prepare and protect. It makes sense. So maybe a real, just to make it really applied. So those are all esoteric terms, and that's really great. But to make it really applied, like what I would challenge people with is, okay, so every time someone walks in the room, did you know how many hours of sleep they had? Did you know the quality of sleep they had? Did you know how hydrated they are? Do you know what meals they ate? Do you know what stress levels academically, personally, the training you gave them the day before, and the training that they've done on a sport? Do you know what effects those had on the individual as they come into that next day? Do you have any concept? Or are you just putting something on a whiteboard or a Excel sheet or now a technology piece that says, well, based upon what I did yesterday, this is what you should do today? I would tell you this. I don't think you're preparing and protecting them. I don't think you're worried about do no harm. I don't. I think you might be worried about moving strong, moving fast, but I think you've missed something. Because those things matter. I don't know about you, but all it took for my kid was the girl that he liked for the last 3 months to wink at him on the way to the weight room. Percentages were off. The guy was full of energy. Or he fails a math test. Now we're in a whole nother level. So I need to know those things before they come in. So we established through a survey, and surveys do provide a sense of reliability. There are studies to show that. I did a thesis in grad school on it. There are studies to support it, again, without getting nerdy. But we did it so before they walked in the room, I could tell you exactly where each individual was. And those studies played themselves out over a 2-year period of time, that if they scored on a 0 to 100 scale, if they scored below a 50, they were at a risk of a non-contact injury. It could be a sprained ankle. It could be a tendonitis that was going to allow them to miss a practice and or game within a week. If they scored under a 50, they were at a risk that they were going to miss a practice or a game. It was significant risk within 1 week. So do you think that's knowledgeable? Do you think maybe I shouldn't worry about how much they squat that week, and maybe I should establish something that allows them to recover and regenerate to be able to play more and play better? Yes. Now, if it was about squat, no, we're just going to bang the squat out because it's about the freaking squat. Not about the squat or the bench or the clean or the deadlift or whatever it is. What it is about me is play more, play better. So I'm going to establish that, and that was important to us. So we did. It took the kids less than 2 minutes a day. It took me 5 seconds to look at a screen on my computer. I think that's important. So that's a directly applicable aspect to this do no harm or prepare and protect, however you want the terminology. So I want to kind of maybe give you a little bit more of a direct application of that. The system we use was Kinduct. There are other systems that are out there. That was what we used. Right. And we're actually going to move into some resources. I've heard you talk about Kinduct before. And obviously there's some other ones out there. Let's dive into that. What are some of the resources or tools or softwares or apps that you use to really optimize your training and your workflow?
Yeah, so Kinduct was one of them for us. There were other ones that are coming down the line. That's the one that I used for my readiness survey to establish how ready they were for what I thought they were going to do. And again, it's not the end-all be-all, and numbers don't dictate coaching. I want to stress that. You got some coaches out there that just, their heart rate says this, or their heart rate variance says that, or whatever it may be, and you got to know how to coach. And you got to know when to apply numbers and when not to apply numbers. So I think that's an important concept. And we go down that path later if you want. But I think that's important. Numbers don't dictate coaches; they allow me to make decisions. And so that was a big piece. From a technology standpoint, I think heart rate monitoring is important. I think when we talk about conditioning, what are we really talking about? Are we talking about how they run a mile and a half? Are we talking about how they do a yo-yo test? Are we talking about how they do repeated 300-yard shuttles? Are we talking about how they do 16 110s? Because I got news for you. The one thing that's consistent in all those is a fast athlete scores well and a slow athlete doesn't. It has nothing to do with this dang conditioning. So if I'm not sure what their heart rate is doing, and more importantly, how their heart rate recovers, then maybe I'm not establishing conditioning. And by the way, running is not the only way we can condition. So seeing what their heart rate does, people that are not conditioned well, guess what their heart rate does the minute you start training them? And I don't care what the training is. Guess what their heart rate does?
Spikes.
spikes. And how long does an unconditioned athlete take for that heart rate to come back down?
It takes a lot
right?
longer. Yeah.
That's right. So shouldn't we be more worried about what we're doing and maybe affecting the heart rate? Shouldn't we look at ways in which we could make them stay at a lower heart rate longer and then make them recover faster? Maybe. Instead of just saying, hey, run another route, let's just make them run again and then yell at them while they're not running fast. I don't understand that. Doesn't make any sense. So I guarantee this, my athletes probably ran on a global sense, a quote conditioning sense, probably 80% less than anybody we played. I'll just talk about football in particular. I bet we ran about 80% less than anybody else. But I will say this, and anybody that's played me that may listen to this, you can call me out if you want. But anyone that we ever played, I don't think I've ever heard in 20 plus years there, boy, your team get tired. No, I've heard the opposite. I heard, man, why do they keep running in the fourth quarter? Well, they had fresh legs. You just ran your legs out. We affected conditioning, and yes, we used technology to make sure that we were affecting conditioning in a smarter sense. And so I think that's a piece of technology. We did use Team Builder. I think Team Builder was fantastic for us from a application of my programming and to be able to chart and monitor programming. It saved me about 2 hours a week in collecting data from my workouts. That alone was brilliant. Train Heroic is a good option. There's Coach Me Plus. There's a lot of platforms, one that's out there. There are a lot of really good kind of components. We use Team Builder. And then we did use velocity-based training. We use Tendos. I got Tendos. I've been working with velocity-based training for close to 18 years. So it's been a while, and a lot of different modes there. The Tendo unit or the Gym Aware with the ones with the strings are called linear positional transducers. Big word that makes me sound smart. It's not. The little string just has more reliable data up to this point, but the accelerometers, the push bands, the things like that, Power Sensei, they're getting better. The technology's increased. I think this current push band is really a good one. Probably the first accelerometer that I really like for consistency of data. But here's the deal. There you go. Yeah. So if I do a clean and I tell you this, I'm 5'9", 185, and I clean from the floor, let's just say from the floor, 305 pounds, would you be impressed by that, Coach?
If you clean that, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you would say, wow, that's yeah, exactly. You're right. The answer is yes. That's pretty good. And then the answer I always ask coaches is, what does that measure then? I know it's impressive, but what does it measure? So I cleaned 305 from the ground, and we call that when we go from the ground, I call them deck or platform cleans, but most people call it what? A what clean?
A full clean or a power clean, I think.
Power clean. Okay, power clean. Yep. That's the number there. But it's a word that's probably used most often, but power clean. What is that 305? I mean, what are we doing it for? What are we cleaning for? Because we're trying to develop what? We already said the word. We're trying to develop power. That's right. Hey, and yes, if I get stronger, yes, there is a relationship between strength and power. Yes, the stronger I get, more than likely, the more powerful I'm going to get. Yes, I'm not going to argue that. But did I really measure by cleaning 305 pounds how powerful I was? And the answer is no, because I did not judge how fast the bar moves. And please do not tell me that your eyes tell me how fast it moves. I don't care who you are. That's ridiculous. You're not RoboCop. You're not the Terminator and judging things on how fast it is. That's ridiculous. So if I don't establish how fast I'm moving something, maybe, just maybe, and there is a chance maybe is right, that I'm lifting in the strength zone and not in the power zone. So maybe you're using an exercise that was dictated to be used to develop power and you're using it for strength. Well, I would tell you this. Why don't you just front squat the guy? I don't understand that because I can front squat 415. So I'm like, okay, great. So using an exercise that isn't good enough for strength and probably is too slow for power. So what did you just do for 5 or 7 minutes with that athlete? I would tell you this. You probably wasted your time. Meanwhile, I'm going to use velocity-based training to make sure they're in the zone. I'd rather be right than lucky. So my athletes are going to be in the zone for 5 to 7 minutes. You're hoping your athletes are in the zone for 5 to 7 minutes. And I would tell you this, hope isn't a strategy. So I want to give my athletes every single chance that I can give them to be the great that they were born to be. That's the only reason we use that. So when people are like, oh, he's a velocity-based guy. No, I'm not a velocity-based guy, but I do believe there is usage for it.
Mm-hmm. Going back to what you said, numbers don't dictate, but they allow you to make decisions. Well, in that case, as a coach, and you're seeing an athlete move slower with maybe a higher load, that's great if it's a higher load, but not if it's not moving fast enough. It allows you to make a decision really quick. And then the really cool
Correct.
thing that I find from this is now athletes can make a decision off of this. So now I don't have to,
That's right.
I don't have to micromanage on my athletes. They know what to do.
That's right. And there's studies to clearly show that immediate feedback has a 5 to 7% jump in performance. So if my athletes can have that immediate feedback right away, real true live feedback, not me just talking to them, but real true live feedback, they're going to have a jump in 5 to 7% increase in performance on that next set or rep. Well, I want that 5 to 7%. Maybe your athletes are better than mine and don't need a 5 to 7% jump, but I want it. Even if I had great athletes, that I'm always going to look for an edge. So my whole mindset has always been, I'm not against the Olympic lifts. I'm not against power lifts. I'm not against getting strong. What I am for is every advantage I can give my athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think maybe the 5 to 7 could be even just like intent, right? When kids see a number, man, that intent to move fast or whatever the other word that you could use for intent, it just goes up. When we get those out, kids they move well. Right? Because they're going to self-organize to move as fast as they can. Well, when you move as fast as you can, you're going to move well.
That's right. And let's be clear about something. I'm not telling you to move something faster with more inefficient form. Let's be clear that we're saying that the form is great, whether it's slow or fast. Let's establish that. All I'm saying is if the form is the same, and you move slow and I move fast, and my purpose is to develop power, then my athletes are getting better than your athletes. And that's just the way it is. So did I ever max a clean? No. Oh, that's because he's against Olympic weightlifting. No, it's not. It's just that my purpose, my philosophy, my mission wasn't to develop Olympic weightlifters. What my mission was develop freaking monsters, people that you thought couldn't do it, and they show you they could, because my definition of monster is those that inspire awe by doing what others thought impossible. So I wanted my smaller athletes to develop more power than your bigger athletes and knock your bigger athletes on their you-know-what. And that was a win for me. And so that's all I cared about. Now, what they cleaned, I don't know. I mean, I used to frustrate coaches all the time because they would say, "Oh, what are our clean numbers?" 4297 at 255. And they would go, "What the hell is that?" And so, well, that's how many watts he produces with 255 pounds. He produces 4297. That's the best thing he can do right now. He goes up to 260. He can't produce that wattage. He's training in that zone right now. As he gets stronger and more powerful and can move and has more efficiency, maybe that number will change. And so that's not the number they like, because we all want to live in this global world where 305 is better than 300. Well, maybe not when it comes to power. If I move it slower, it's not. So, that's where technology helps. It helps make a decision, like you said, it helps make a decision on what I'm choosing to do with my athletes. And you want to get buy-in, you want to build culture? When athletes know I'm dialed into that level, what athlete doesn't want that? What athlete doesn't want a coach that's dialed into giving them exactly what they need, as opposed to just chasing genetic freakish number? So that's right. What I wanted to do.
And that's such a great conversation to have with kids, right? Like, for them to get on board with what your mindset is with that, they're like, "Oh yeah, that does make sense." Because at first listen, somebody be like, like, your kid only does 250 and we can do 305. It's like, well, wait just a second, listen to this, okay? Because it goes back to
that's right. And I'll always say this is like, because I got challenged a little bit. Well, your athletes aren't strong enough. So okay, well, let's just we did a max clean, and that kid that was producing, and I believe it was close to 7,000 watts, but whatever it was, I can't go off the top of my head. We had him clean, and we stopped him at 395, and he was doing it relatively easy. I'm like, is he strong? Yes. Okay. Can we move on now? Like, let's not have this discussion. So it's not like I'm limiting their strength development to focus on another component. I'm just purposely choosing things to maximize what I'm doing.
Right. Well, and if we want to get power from it, I mean, I just remember Brian Mann talking about this. Is like, he brought it to Pat Ivey and said, "Why aren't we getting better vertical jumps if we're making more power?"
Correct.
And it's like, well, it makes sense. Like, if we're not moving it in the speed zone, then that's not going to transfer. So I love
exactly
that.
Right.
So if we can use technology in a way that makes us better, go for it. Every single time, go for it.
Correct. So, technology gets a negative component because we live in the land of technology, and it is a great disconnector when you see people on phones rather than talking to people. But technology, when used correctly, can be a great connector. So both for culture and for individual growth. So I think it's just up to us to make sure that we're using it correctly.
Coach, you talked about maybe like hang clean. You don't test on hang clean, or you don't max out on hang clean. And that just sparked kind of my thought process. What are you using for KPIs, your key performance indicators that meant that you were making monsters or monsters? Sorry, I pronounced it.
Yeah, I know my Boston accent. Yeah. So real quick, we had three KPI categories. We had readiness, we had movement, and we had athleticism. So from our readiness, we would do that on a weekly basis, and I already mentioned that was our sleep, hydration, stress, and nutrition components. I wasn't sold on heart rate variance or nervous system evaluation tools yet, but that might be something down the line that we potentially could add in. But I would do that through the survey and look at a weekly number, and we would highlight literally to the parent, to the athlete, and to the coach, as long as the athlete and the parent agree to it, where they were in a readiness factor and what areas might be problematic going forward in regards to how ready they were and how they were responding and recovering from the stressors that we put on them. And let's face it, as a strength coach, our job are stressors. We are stress agents. We are to put stress on people. What I don't want to do is add strain to stress. When you add strain to stress, that's where injury occurs. So I wanted to be smart with that. So that was a weekly communication tool and KPI that we did. Movement. A lot of people are into movement screens, and we did a modified, very modified functional movement screen, and we did a dynamic movement assessment from warm-up movement assessment with Mike Bewley. It's a great resource, DWMA. We did both of those in a modified status, but we did them only a couple each week, so that by the end of the month, I had a full evaluation of their movement capabilities, and we did it every month. So every month, by doing it just a couple every week, I had plenty of time to put it in. I didn't have to allocate a whole training session to try to test their movement. All I was looking for in that wasn't necessarily an improvement. I was looking at when they're playing really well, what does their movement profile look like? And it's different for every sport and every individual. Some areas are going to be stable. Some areas are going to be mobile. When they're playing well and they're not injured, what does their movement profile look like? When their performance goes down or they get injured, I look at their movement profile. And then if I find something that's consistent, like, boy, when they get too mobile in this area, they're apt to be injured in this area. When they get too stable in this area, the performance goes down in this area. And so I was able to dial in an individual movement profile for each athlete that was, again, not judged by an overall movement score. Hey, they were not above a 14. I never saw consistency in that. Maybe it's the way I applied it. I'm not going to rip it. I just know what I was trying to do is find out what allows them to play more, what allows them to play better. That was a monthly communication tool that we used, our KPI category. And then what everyone wants to hear is the athleticism. I'll say athleticism, we did our three strength components were upper body, lower body, total body, and we chose a bench, a squat, and a trap bar deadlift. Trap bar deadlift because between the ages of 8 and 18, 6% of the population in the United States have pars fractures, which is a shear force issue. And the trap bar puts the weight closer to the body, so it reduces the shear force on an individual. And I thought it was a more wiser decision than a barbell. Plus, my athletes with a low training age didn't have really good back strength, so I wanted to eliminate that from a straight bar. So I'm not saying you can't, just was my choice. So we use those three things to measure strength. We measured power through a vertical and a long jump. We measured agility from both a 5-10-5, which isn't the greatest thing in the world, but we also did a reactive agility test through a light sensor, see how they could react, because we need to take into consideration reaction. And then speed was a 10, 20, and a 40. Sometimes we did 60s with our baseball guys because that's what they wanted to do, and that's fine. We would do a 30 and a 60 on those. And then our conditioning test was whatever we gave them, whether it was the 30-15, we always incorporated a heart rate recovery. So 1 minute after they get done with their conditioning test, I wanted to see how well their heart rate recovered. Those were our KPIs. We did that on anywhere between a 3 and a 6 month basis, so that we didn't do that regularly. But we always constantly looked for changes and ebbs and flows in that. So those were our 3 levels of KPIs, and when we applied them.
I like it. That's all great information. Just as I'm looking through and we kind of do like a beginning of the semester stuff, and then our surveys aren't quite as robust as yours, but it's helpful when like we'll do it on our sheet, and we'll do it through conversation, that type of stuff. And then the movement component, like we used to do FMS when I was at Northwest Missouri State, and FMS was great, but it was still some of those constraints that you're just like, okay, what are these numbers actually telling us? So I like what you're talking about there. And then the athleticism stuff, like however you want to argue it, whatever way, if you can show that you're getting better in those areas, aren't we doing what we're doing, what you want to do, where we can play better and play more? So I like the KPIs that you're using, and obviously that's something that I look at and just make sure, are we measuring what we truly want to measure? And so that's something that
because in the end, if you tell me your athlete's bigger, faster, and stronger, but he's sitting on the bench because he stinks, then what I will tell you is he's sitting on the bench because he stinks. I had this conversation with an athlete, a coach before, and he says, "Hey man, our athletes got this improved on average this much in their squat, their bench, they're clean, their 40s went down, and my coach is mad." And I'm like, "Well, what was your record last year?" And they're like, "Well, we were 1-9." And I'm like, "Well, you're 1-9. I mean, you're worried about things that protect, I guess, your job." And I did a podcast with Jay DeMayo about this very thing and said, sometimes as strength coaches, we chase what's important to us, not only because we love the strength and conditioning realm, but also it saves our behinds and it hires us. And we could say, hey, listen, we did my job. That coach must not be doing his job. Instead of realizing what we were hired to do is increase performance, decrease risk of injury. That's it. But we don't want to do that because that puts us in an uneasy area. So every year, by not doing what everyone else did, I put myself at risk. And I know there were coaches that I work with that probably weren't happy because I couldn't tell them, hey, their benches went up X, Y, and Z. But in the end, when we were 14-1, they were okay. So, in the end, when if we had a bad year and a coach came to me, so well, let's look at the film. You tell me where we were bad and where it's physical, where it is emotional, where it is focus driven, where it is whatever it is. I want to be part of the solution. I'm not running and hiding from it. It's not like, hey, listen, that's your fault. No, let's dive in. Show me. Oh, man, look, every time we get beat, our DBs don't lack the speed to be able to catch a deep ball. Crap, that's top end speed. I need to make sure that I'm adapting my program to that, especially for those individuals. Let's talk about that. I'm not running from that. So then coaches are okay because I've never met a coach that wants a bench, squat, clean, and 40 to all be great and have a very slow, poor performing team. I've never met that guy. I'm sure he's out there. I've never met him. The only thing they really care about is that the team performs well. Now, when it doesn't, they're going to ask you about the bench, squat, and clean and all that crap. But really what they're asking you about is, hey, what can we do to get better on the field? They don't really care about the weight room. And you say, well, my coach cares about the weight room. No, he doesn't. He thinks that that's mattering on the field. That's what he really cares about. What he really cares about is what matters on the field. Play better, play more. So what are we doing that we can play better, play more? Don't give me this crap about bench, squat, clean. That's silly. Let's talk. It's a lot bigger than that. Because here's the deal. If it really was bench, squat, clean that dictated wins and losses, we wouldn't have head coaches. We would just hire a bunch of strength coaches that would hire offensive and defensive coordinators, right? Because if it was really just bench, squat, clean, I'd be the head coach. And then I would hire an offensive and defensive coordinator to call plays. And I would say, hey, listen, I don't need a head coach. And that's moronic. We know there's bigger things than that. But we get lost in what we get lost in.
I love it. That's great stuff, Coach. How about this? You've kind of went around a little bit of your training philosophy, but I want to tie these next two together. Your training philosophy, which is a broad term, I know, but however you want to answer that, I'm cool with. And then also, how do you use a block or level system to separate your training ages and experiences? And I know that you've got a really cool way of doing that also. So you want to kind of combine those two into one question and attack that.
Sure. So, the real easy answer for me to give you is I don't necessarily have a training philosophy. I believe in training principles, and that sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. So basically, I'm going to use whatever tool I need to evoke the physical, mental, social, spiritual component that's going to allow my athlete to play more, play better. So some athletes, it's going to look like Olympic lifting. Some athletes going to look at powerlifting. Some athletes, it's going to be a more functional training component. Some athletes, it looks more like CrossFit. Oh God, he said that word. It's going to look like whatever it needs to be for what that athlete needs. I'm not going to give them what I like. I'm going to give them what they need. I like beer. I'm not giving my athletes beer. It's not going to be what I like. It's going to be what they need. Too often I walk in a weight room and I can walk within 5 minutes and realize what a coach likes to do because their athletes are now doing it. When I ask them, why is that athlete doing it? They don't necessarily have an answer. They just know it works for them as a coach. And I'm like, yeesh, that's just a weird way to do things, in my opinion. So philosophies, I don't have one, or I have them all. Like I wanted to be able to know them all so that I can use them when I need them, which leads into that second one is, okay, block systems. So I was a big block guy early on, and I guess I'm a block guy now, but maybe not the way that most people do. Well, most people say, well, it's block 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll take the trap bar, for example, and we're gonna build maybe it's a high block trap bar or an RDL, and then I go to a trap bar, then I go to a hang clean, then I go to a power clean. And that sounds really good. So block 4 is a power clean, and block 1 was an RDL. But what I found over 20 years of doing this, not a year and a half or 2 years or whatever, lack of experience, what I found is doing over 20 years, what I found is some guys would progress higher on one lift and slower on another. Maybe they might still be front squatting. They couldn't go up to a back squat or whatever it might be. And so they were block 1 in the front squat, and they were block 4 on a bench, and they were block 3 in the clean/deadlift. And I'm like, well, what block are they? I don't know what block they are. And that just seems silly to me. You should be able to exercise progress and regress regardless of what block they're in. That seems silly. I maybe went to a different way of blocking my athletes. So the way in which we block our athletes is based upon their needs. So we have a block 0 program. I do like that word. That's a Joe Ken word. I do like it. I don't use it the way he does, and I think he does a great job. Eric Cash, a great resource, does it kind of the way Joe Ken does it, and I think that's fantastic. I kind of tweaked a little bit of Eric Cash's from NatCon last year at NHSSCA, but we use a 1x20 system. Michael Yesis is a 1x20, and we do it a little differently than Yesis does, and we have some plyos like Eric Cash does, but it's definitely a 1x20. Again, building up towards a 1x8 program in our 7th and 8th grade program. Then we have our base program. Our base program I got from Nick Garcia. He's out in California. He has this great program. So I'm not going to take someone from a 1 set of 20 rep routine and dump them into a multi-set, multi-rep routine. That's changing too many variables. I like changing one variable at a time. So now we're going to go ahead and put them into a multi-set routine, but we're not going to give them a barbell. We're not going to put that on them. So what we're going to do is a dumbbell, medicine ball, body weight, kettlebell routine. That's an upper body, lower body split that allows them to train. And we had them 4 days a week. So our program was based on that. If I had 3 days a week, it would be the same thing. So we have that. So if you're in 7th and 8th grade, you're doing kind of a 1x20 program, block 0. Our block 1, our base program, you're going to do at least for a semester, if not longer, and that allows them to then get to our more advanced, which I guess would be block 2, 3, and 4, if you want to call them that. We didn't. So we have 4 different variables that I can give you. So once you get through the 1x20, once you get through the base program, then I feel like you have a training age to maybe potentially get to the point. Some people stay in that base program forever, by the way. Our non-athletes that train with us, it's still a very athletic way to train. They just don't need to worry about their squat. It's not an important component. Our non-athletes don't need to worry about their 40 or vertical. They just want to be able to jump and run, but they don't need to worry about being able to compete. The only thing different between training a general pop student and an athletic student is competition. So both need to run, jump, throw, kick, roll, crawl, bench, squat, hinge, push, pull, all those kinds of things. The difference is the athlete needs to do it better than someone else. There's a competitive component of it. So our athletic development thing is 4 different components. We have a size, so that is obviously going to be a mass building, and a lot of that is based on the Mass by Simple by Dan John. Kind of use that program. There's going to be a shape. So there are a lot of metabolic conditioning, so you're going to look at it, a lot of circuit-based stuff. And again, when you come in, it's very CrossFit-ish looking, but a lot of metabolic component to it. I think it's smartly chosen, but we'll have that. That's our shape program. Then we have a strength program. So that's where you're going to see a lot of APREs. You're going to see 5-3-1 programming. And then we have a speed program. That's where our velocity-based training comes in, and we have a velocity-based training APRE. And we also do some phasic stuff towards our speed components because I like that French contrast or complexing that goes on within that system. So basically, to tell you this, you're in my middle school, you're doing a block 0, 7th and 8th grade. First time you're coming into my program, you're going to do the block 1 foundational program, upper body split, upper body, lower body split, no barbell. And then when you get to the component, if you choose that you want to train at a higher elite athlete standing, then I'm going to give you a program that I believe fits where you most need it. Now, none of those programs are exclusive of the other components. So if I put you in a mass building program, it doesn't mean there isn't strength and power in it. There's always a thread of everything in my program. Stole that from Al Vermeil and Vern Gambetta. There's always a thread of everything in my program. But the bigger picture item is mass building. The bigger picture item might be shape, might be fat burning. It might be, and I use those words because if you put a female in a fat burning program, then you establish them maybe a negative connotation of their body image, and I don't want to do that. So we chose those words carefully. And so now I can ebb and flow anyone in and out of that. The exercise in which are in those programs depend upon what capability you have. I mean, do you have the technical capability to do a front squat versus a belt squat? Do you have the technical capability of doing a back squat versus a front squat? I don't care what program you're in. Now I can give you what you need, set, rep, intensity, restoration, and the exercise is just based upon your technical capability. I ain't worried about that. So that's the way in which we, quote, block our athletes. I hope that didn't sound complicated. I hope that made sense.
No, I like it. I'm just trying to write it out on my sheet, and the way I've kind of got it,
yeah.
just so that you can correct me if I'm wrong with this. But you kind of have a base program, base program, which was like block 0, 7th and 8th graders, and then a foundational, which is maybe the next step up from there. And then after that, it's the size, shape, strength, speed, depending on where you think they need to be at. Is that correct? And then progressions and regressions correct. Within each one of those.
So if I have an athlete that's greater than 15% of the body weight in which he wants to compete at a varsity level, then I'm probably going to make sure that I have a large component of the size in his yearly annual plan. That doesn't mean he's not also going to be on strength, and it doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be on power, but I probably need, if I have 16 weeks, I probably don't need to equate 2 weeks to hypertrophy or size or whatever it is you want to call it. I probably need more. That kid needs more. But if I have a kid that's already, he's 6'2", he's 230, he's a middle linebacker, you know what? I'm probably just going to dump him right in this, but his bench is, 205 pounds. He probably needs a strength development program. So I'm probably going to give him more time in the strength. Doesn't mean he's not going to have size either, because we all could have more muscles, good. But it means he might only be 2 weeks in it. The other guy's 8 weeks in the size program. So now I can ebb and flow. And ultimately in this program, this is what I like best about it. Guess who gets the final program they're in?
The kid.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to tell him, and I'm going to tell the coach, and I'm going to tell the parent, and this is why I choose what I'm choosing, because I believe this is going to affect them most in playing more and playing better. But ultimately, yeah, you have the say. People freak out at that, but I'm like, you want to build culture, you want to build buy-in, or whatever you want to call it, that's not a bad way to do it. They have ultimate say in it. And when they're not seeing the results they want to see, they might come back to me and go, Coach, can I? Yeah, absolutely, man. We can go back into another program. Where do you want to be? Let's go. So it makes it really easy for me to allocate their training based upon the fact of where they're at, rather than some weird block system that is just, in my opinion, robotic. I'm not a big believer in that. I'm not a big believer in models. I'm a big believer in individualization or differentiation or whatever term you want to use. That's what I'm a big believer in.
Right. And each athlete having ownership within that too. Correct. I think that's correct. Such a big part of what you're talking about. That's great. The thing that stands out to me, I guess, the most from that is being able to progress and regress into each one of those, if you want to call them blocks or levels or whatever. I think that's awesome.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. It makes that's your job. That's what they hire you for. So if I'm in a high size volume, do I want to put a bar on a guy's back, or do I want to use a belt squat? I'm probably choosing a belt squat.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you don't, that's fine. I'm not choosing a back squat. I might go front squat, but probably not. I'm probably doing a belt squat at that point. But that's why. Oh, that guy, why is he belt squatting? Can he not back squat? No, he can. But in this cycle, that's the exercise that we're choosing, because I think it elicits the gain that we want with the minimum cost. Efficient training. That's smart training. And then you say, well, this guy's in a strength and he's front squat, and this guy over here, he's back squat. Well, that's a technical thing. This guy can't front squat 1.25 times his body weight, and I'm not going to let him back squat until he can do that. I don't think he has the core strength to be able to handle a back squat. That's a decision that I'm making based upon a regression and a progression. Like that athlete doesn't have that decision. I'm not doing that decision. That's my decision because I'm not going to allow him to do anything that's going to hurt him. I won't do that. That's me.
Going back to prepare and protect or do no harm or whatever you want to call that first core value.
Correct.
Okay. Coach, all the information that you've given up to this point, I love it. And I'm still writing here trying to catch up on this. But one of the things I wanted you to have enough time to talk about is the NHSSCA and its importance and maybe any like foundational things that people need to know about it or whatever you wanted to plug in right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So people that don't know, the National High School Strength Coach Association, it was founded in 2016. Fred Eves, Kevin Vanderbush, myself, and Rich Gray, we got together. And for many years, it wasn't just in 2016, but for many years it was talked about where there wasn't an association that really focused in on our needs. There are many associations, many of them good, out there that focus on strength and conditioning and the importance of it. But when you go to a conference and you have just a little subsection in a corner, or you have one speaker that focuses on something that we can do, or another speaker that gets up there and talks about this great warm-up procedure that's 45 minutes long. And I'm like, dude, I got 32 minutes to train my athletes. It became evident and clear that we needed our own voice in order to be the professionals that I think we are. And so we created this association, and for less than $10 a month, the connection, the networking, and the educational opportunities to be better at what you do, whether you're a sport coach that's in a weight room, whether you're a PE teacher that's in a weight room, or whether you're blessed to be a strength coach that is at a high school level, is second to none, in my opinion. I think I would put it on par with any association that's out there at any level. I think it's fantastic. So one of the entry levels, just to see what we're all about, is the Facebook page, NHSSCA, over 4,000 active members on the Facebook page. I really kind of just dialing in videos, sharing content. You get 30 days on that for free. It's going to become a member benefit because it is so powerful. But again, less than $10 a month in professional development, I don't know where you get that. Like there's nothing out there that is equitable to that. And 100% of the money goes back to the profession. No one gets a salary. No one. Zero. In fact, it's written that I could never. I mean, it's very clearly done that way. So no one says, oh, they're just doing something to make money. That's not what this is about. So our whole goal there is to educate, equip, and empower. Sound very familiar. Educate, equip, and empower high school strength coaches to impact the athletes that we're seeing on a daily basis. So our website is www.nhssca.us. If there's one event you're going to attend, it should be our national conference. This year it's in Minnesota. It is an amazing 2-day experience that I can't even begin to put in words if you haven't been to it. It is educationally powerful. It is networking significant. We have a hashtag that we do, #family, and believe me, when you're in, you're in. It's something that you'll totally get. I've had a very large association recently this January pull me aside at their conference and tell me, hey, listen, we tried to copy some of the things you guys are doing. We can't get the same response. You've done a really good job of building community. It's a great compliment. So I highly advise anyone who knows anyone in that profession to really push them maybe to the Facebook page just so they can get just a view of what we're doing. Usually most people will be like, wow, that's awesome. That's exactly what I needed. And really we just exist to hopefully make an impact on those coaches so that they can make an impact on their athletes. So that's really, really what we're about.
So maybe just a personal testimony for me. My first year as a high school strength coach was 2016. The biggest struggle I had was going from a staff of, we had 4 people that were kind of in the office all the time, kind of the staff at Northwest Missouri State. And then we'd have a decent amount of interns and that type of stuff. And the conversation was always going and there was always community. And it was something that was just amazing within my life. And then my first year as a high school strength coach, it was just me. And I felt like I was on an island. I'd call my buddies up. I'd call my mentor strength coach up and we'd just talk, but is because I had a void. And the NHSSCA is that staff for me now. To be able to call you like today, to be able to call everybody that's on that Facebook page or reach out via email or whatever, it truly impacted the way that I operate and how much I could learn, but more so is the connections that I've made because of it. The relationships, the friends that I've made, it is something that I would recommend to anyone. And one of the things I want you to maybe go into here too is just how it's for anybody, right? From the very
Absolutely.
beginning, student to I think about like Coach McKenna. It's everyone.
Correct. We have college undergraduate students. We have college graduate students. We have first-year coaches. We have 30-year coaches. We have pro coaches. We have private facility coaches that work with youth athletes. So it is not an exclusive.
Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yep.
No, you're good.
I got it. I think maybe at the very tail end of it's not exclusive. I got it. So, and then Coach, maybe one last thing, and this is something I want to know. There's been talk of a certification. What does that look like? Is that coming down the pipe?
It absolutely is. We're not rushing it. So we were hoping that it would be sooner. And we all were, but we want to do it right. So we are in the process. We have 32 authors, high school strength coaches across the country served as authors. We now have 6 strength coaches serving as editors. So they're now in the editing content. It will be an online component. To give you a quick overview, we'll have 3 levels. The first 2 levels will be released really soon. We're hoping by the summer. And the first level will be an introductory level. Not every coach is going to have to do that, but you might have a sport coach, say a football coach that's in the weight room training as athletes. And it's going to cover 8 basic core concepts that you should know if you're going to be in a weight room. And you can take that. The thing about that is it's only good for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, you cannot renew it. There is not a way to see you renew that. What we're going to give you is a study guide to get to the main level of our exam. A main level of exam is a 12-module component, very deep, really dialing in on curriculum design as well as all the training components, speed and agility and all the components behind it. So if you're a coach that maybe isn't up to that level, you can take the entry level. If you're a coach that's been doing this a while and you want to go right for the big one, you can do that. That one is something that you would continue and you could hold for a career, and there would be a way to renew that one. And we're not limiting it to just the CEUs from our own organization. We'll allow it if it's in the professional domains of those modules. We'll take it from anywhere because it's not a money grab. And then the third one would be after you hold that level for 3 years, you're going to be able to get to a master level. And real quick, there's some more to it than I'm able to spend here, but you basically videotape you doing it. Because all that stuff we talked about is a passive learning experience. I want an active learning experience. If I hire you, do I know you can do it or do I know you just know about it? Like I want to know you know about it and can do it. So the master level is going to express that you have the passive knowledge and the active knowledge. You're able to apply it. So you would video it. We would have a panel. And those guys are going to be experts. You won't know who they are, so you can't yell at them later. But they will tell you whether you met those rubrics or not and if you need to resubmit. But once you pass that, then again, you would become a master level high school strength coach. So that's where we're at. It's great because I think it allows everyone who's currently at the high school to be able to become a qualified strength and conditioning coach, as opposed to pushing them to a specific certification that they may or may not be able to do. And I don't want to get people fired. What I want to do is level people up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's a great way to do that. I like the entry exam, and then I also like the main one. That all makes sense to me, and then also the availability to film. That's a great way to do the master. So I'm excited for that. One of the things I want is before this summer, if it's going to come out before that, all my assistant coaches by the summer program to be able to take that. I think that would be a great way to introduce them to what we want during the summer. So that's
correct.
Awesome,
correct. We're hoping to have a beta testing run here pretty soon, and then we'll move forward. But the reason I started with saying we're not going to rush it is that if we feel like it needs to be edited a little bit more, we will do that. What we're going to do is release a quality piece. We're not going to rush it because, again, it's not a money grab. What we're doing is to try to do a purposeful release that makes our profession better.
Sweet. Awesome stuff. Coach, we're going to move into the finisher questions here. And with these, they're just quick answers to each one of these. But before we get to that, I messed up and I forgot to ask you the reason that we do this show right here. And I want you to give our listeners kind of your rundown of this. But how are you making the big time where you're at?
Well, again, I think we talked about it briefly in that when you can live life with passion, no matter the task that's at hand, then that's the big time. So if I'm doing something passionately, whether it's spending time with my wife or whether it is speaking at a conference or whether it is training a 6-year-old, I'm doing it with the equitable passion. Therefore, it's big time. So that's number one. Number two is my life has existed in that format. So my career started in the pros, then it went to a college, and then it ended in the high school. The only reason people know me is because of the stuff I've done at a high school. So that doesn't make sense in the common culture that the, quote, lowest level had the biggest or widest ranging impact. I mean, I'm speaking in Australia, and there are people that know who Coach Schofield is, not because I'm good, but because I was able to maybe do something with passion equitable to anything else that's on the horizon. So I think the key to that simply is living life with passion rather than chasing a passion.
I love it. Great response. Definitely a way that you can see what that looks like, right? And that's why I was connected early to watching the videos that you did, was because I could tell that you had that. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's not chasing it, but it's living it. And I like that.
Correct.
How about these finisher questions now? I like all these resources here at the end. Coach, what's your favorite book?
So it changes because I'm constantly looking to grow. And right now it's Range by David Epstein. He wrote The Sports Gene. Range really kind of challenges you on to adapt and develop different skill sets, not just keep trying to become a better strength coach, but develop different skill sets that you might be able to utilize down the line. Really good book.
Sweet. How about a person that's influenced you the most? And that can be professionally or that can be just in your life.
Yeah, so I would say right off the bat, professionally, it would be Vern Gambetta, but I would be lacking to say it wasn't Jeremy Boone from really attacking me to being away from being an expert into being a coach, a true coach. And then probably most recently, Rich Gray, who works as our executive director with the NHSSCA, and I'm blessed to have him be a boss of mine here at PLAE, has really helped me be a better family man. So I think those three people stand out right now.
Great. How about your favorite quote?
Boy, that's a hard one. So I'm not a quote guy. I saw that when we were talking about it. I'm not a quote guy as much as I am a philosophy kind of guy. I don't, but if I had to dial it down, if I had to go, I've already talked about a little bit, it'd be Jocko Willink talking about discipline equals freedom. Because I think for too long, I thought about discipline in a negative consequence, when really the only success in life has come when I've had discipline and it gave me the freedom to do the things that I've always wanted to do. So I might do that one.
I like that one. I put that at the top of my syllabus, and it's kind of migrated to being one of my favorites, no doubt. So the next one, this one will be an interesting deal because it seems like you live and breathe the profession, right? But what are you doing outside of your training of athletes or talking to coaches? What's your favorite hobby?
Sure. So I love to grill. I love to be outside. You'll see that's probably my biggest thing, and just spending time with family. And I know that's not a quote hobby, but it's something I love to do. And then my brother and I, we go to at least 4, I think this year will be 5 NASCAR races, and we camp and we hang out and enjoy the race as well as all that goes on behind it. I'm blessed to maybe get some pit passes and stuff like that and see that, but that's probably become a little bit of a hobby of mine as well.
That's awesome. I thought you were going to say Patriots games, and I was relieved. So this is good. This is good. The last question here, Coach, is a small school coach who's killing it and deserves a shout out. And just to give you the framework for that, that's any high school coach and then any small school coach, any small college coach.
Yeah. So two that would come to the head, and if they've been named, let me know. And I got a list. This list could go endlessly because in my job with PLAE, I get to spend a lot of time with coaches across the country, and I'm blown away every time I go in there. But right off the bat, Mark Hoover at York High School. Has he been mentioned before?
So I reached out he's got an awesome episode, and we'll just use this time right now. Check out his episode because he is perfect. He is a stud at what he's doing. All right. What's your other? And
he gets better constantly. And Ed Smith at Lynchburg College.
Ed Smith.
Division III school. Yes. Unbelievable. So he'd be one I wouldn't I was blown away the first time I met him and every time since. So I think I think he has bigger picture items. He does some unique stuff. So those are two right off the bat that strike me.
That's awesome, Coach. The last section here is just letting people continue the conversation with you. If there's something that they want to reach out to you about, what is the best way for them to do that?
Oh, absolutely. My email is Gary, Gary.Schofield, Schofield, at NHSSCA.us. They could also reach to me at that same component at PLAE, PLAE.us. Either one are fantastic. I have at Coach Sco, Instagram, and Facebook, obviously, Gary Schofield or Coach Schofield. And they can reach out to me anyway there. I'm really good with answering emails. If you give me a couple days, sometimes I get, as you know, Coach, I get a little inundated, but I try to answer everybody to the best that I can.
You might end up being in Australia or Ireland or somewhere,
Exactly.
So I guess we'll let that slide when you can travel the world like that, right?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. Coach, I truly appreciate this
My
time
pleasure,
that
brother.
you've taken. I really want you to know that for you to take the time to do this and to impact so many people with how you speak and the career path that you've taken, it is something that I think so many people draw inspiration from, and I'm one of those people that I'm just truly thankful for it.
Thank you, brother. It means the world. Thank you, brother.
All right. Appreciate you, Coach.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.